Welcome! Today we will learn about the history of the English language. First, we will briefly introduce the history of Britain, and then we will study the three periods in which the history of English is divided into: Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. In antiquity, Britain was inhabited by many peoples or tribes, which are referred to under the name Celts. They spoke the Celtic language. But in the year 43, Britain was conquered by the Romans, who ruled the island for 400 years. They brought their knowledge, organization, culture, and their language, Latin. So in this period, the language spoken was a mixture of Latin and Celtic languages. So we cannot talk about an English language until the 5th century, after the Romans left the island, and then is when the Old English period starts. In 450, three Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, came to Britain and pushed the native peoples out of England. Through the years, these three tribes mixed their different dialects and formed a language which is known as Old English or Anglo-Saxon. But what about the Jutes? At the end of the 6th century, St. Augustine arrived on the island to Christianize it. This Christianization brought Latin words into the English language, especially words related to the church such as mass, angel, nun, or priest. Near the end of the 9th century, the Vikings, Scandinavian peoples, invaded the country, and English got many Scandinavian words such as egg, sky, cake, window, husband, or anger. Several written works have survived from the Old English period. The most famous is a heroic epic poem called Beowulf, written, as experts say, more than 1,000 years ago. In 1066, William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, invaded and conquered England, and with this started the second period in the history of English language, the Middle English period. William the Conqueror became king. He brought his French nobles to be part of the new government. Therefore, French became the language of the court, the administration, and culture. The English language, however, was considered to be vulgar and the language of the lower classes. Around the 13th century, England and France broke their relationship. Old English came back, but with many French words incorporated. This new language is referred to as Middle English. Some of the French words incorporated are crown, castle, parliament, army. The most famous example of Middle English is the Canterbury Tales, which describes the life in England in the 14th century. In 1476, the first printing press was established in London, and some valuable manuscripts were printed. Books became cheaper, and more people learned to read. This brought the need to make a standard English, and with it, Modern English period started. By the time of Shakespeare's writings, the language had become clearly recognizable as Modern English. In this period, we can also find three big developments that affected English: the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and the British colonialism. The English Renaissance goes from the 16th to the 17th centuries. It is also known as the Age of Shakespeare, the most famous author of the time. During this period, there was an explosion of culture. Many Greek and Latin words entered English, such as phenomenon, criteria, or data. In the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution appeared in Britain. New words had to be invented to design new products and new machines. For example, train, engine, electricity, telephone, telegraph. And lastly, between the 18th and 20th centuries, Britain was an empire, and English kept changing as they moved across the world. British people interacted with other cultures, and new words were added. Kangaroo and boomerang come from Australia, gincana and turban from India. But this is not the end. English continues to change and develop, and hundreds of new words are incorporated every year. However, the heart of the English language remains the Anglo-Saxon Old English. Thank you. I will see you in the next lesson.
Created using Powtoon.